For decades, we have been looking closely at consumers' use of technology in the home. More recently, connected health and medical devices have enabled new services for consumers to monitor their health care. This has come in all sorts of new form factors and with monitoring services. The global pandemic has also greatly accelerated the use of health services in consumers' homes. We have seen telehealth services skyrocket. 41% of consumers have reported using a telehealth service in the past 12 months, 3 times greater than the year prior. We are excited to bring you 3 days of discussions focused on consumer use of technology in their homes and the impact of the pandemic on new services. With the support of these industry leaders in the health and wellness space, we are able to host this event. Thank you to our sponsors for their involvement in our 7th annual Connected Health Summit. We have presentations from visionary speakers throughout our conversations and networking discussions following our panels moderated by Parks Associates analyst team. We want to thank these industry leaders in advance for their time. Tori Ames, Dr. Donna O'Shea, Mark Dunning, Jean Wang, Richard Culberson, Angie Kalausk-Ebrahimi, Dr. Yuri Quintana. Thank you for joining us for Connected Health Summit 2020. We hope you find value in each session and in connections made with other attendees, sponsors, and speakers. Use the question tab to ask your questions or to upvote your favorite questions from other attendees. You can also answer polling questions under polls to give your live vote. Our analysts and panel speakers will be addressing your questions and the polling answers during the live stream. Ask your questions early in the presentation as our analysts will choose the most upvoted questions to be addressed by the session speakers. If you have any questions during the stream about SwapCard, our team is standing by to help. Just drop a message in the chat or message one of Parks Associates team members via the Parks Associates company page. We want to make sure you're connecting with our industry-leading sponsors in the smart home space. You can visit any sponsor during the session by navigating to the Sponsors tab, browse sponsors, or bookmark the ones that interest you for later. Contact the sponsor via chat, view uploaded documents, watch welcome videos, and more. Have you created your personal event agenda on SwapCard? Go to the Agenda tab, view different sessions under each date, add the sessions that interest you to your personal event agenda. You can access your personal event agenda by clicking the My Event tab. Export your agenda to your calendar to receive reminders and a direct link to your registered sessions.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the final day of the Connected Health Summit. If this is the first day you're attending this conference, welcome. I hope you're familiar with our research. Parks Associates is a market research and consulting firm focused on the consumer technology space. We've studied connected health in the home for over a decade now, looking at everything from telehealth services to remote patient monitoring to independent living and senior care solutions, as well as consumer use of connected wellness, fitness, and wearable devices, and app-based solutions. As a company, we produce over 100 syndicated research reports annually and provide research and consulting services to over 500 different companies. In case you missed my session on Tuesday, I'm Kristen Hannig, a senior analyst here at Parks Associates. In terms of my background, I was trained as a health education specialist in undergrad and did my master's in an MS-MPH dual degree program combining medical anthropology with public health. In particular, I specialize in technology adoption. As you might imagine, it's been an interesting year for me looking at all of the changes and progress we've been seeing in the connected health market to date, even as we continue to deal with the tragedy that is COVID-19. This event marks our 7th year of running our Connected Health Summit. Usually we're in sunny San Diego this time of year, but with everything going on, we've transitioned to a virtual model made possible by these great sponsors you see here. So a special thanks to Alarm.com, Nortec, Athena Health, Softtech, Becklar, and Sprosty for helping us move to our new virtual format. On our first day of our conference, we focused on the big picture of how COVID-19 has impacted the healthcare ecosystem, how telehealth and remote patient monitoring use really skyrocketed as a result, as well as changes in the reimbursement and regulatory landscape, and some of what we expect to see coming over the next following months and years. On the second day of our conference, we turned our attention to the senior population and its needs, looking at how seniors have been impacted by COVID 19 and how caregivers and solutions makers have responded. We also looked at what home service providers are doing in the space in terms of partnerships and spoke to some of the business models and opportunities available. Today, we're going to take a look at the data and analytics space, as well as look towards the future of connected health. For the next few hours, we're going to take a look at really what has changed in terms of health data tracking and analytics. This includes the realm of what we call digital therapeutics, app-based approaches to changing lifestyles, resulting in improved clinical outcomes, as well as device-based approaches, taking vital sign readings and interpreting them, and the use of AI and machine learning on evaluating electronic medical records, x-rays, and other data inputs. I'm going to take the next 20 minutes or so to talk about some of the trends we're seeing on the consumer side of things. Then we're going to hear from Angie Ibrahimi from Blue Shield of California on what they're seeing in terms of health trends, as well as how Blue Shield of California is applying its insights to improve its health outcomes and care delivery. Afterwards, we will be talking about how COVID-19 has impacted the world of connected health analytics with a great lineup of panelists from HP, Validic, Javion, and Be Well Connected Health. Make sure to get your questions in ahead of time. There's a chat box to the right of your screen with a tab labeled questions. Submit your questions there so we can be sure to have them answered by our panelists towards the end of the session. Finally, we'll end this session with a few networking discussions in Zoom breakout rooms. However, be sure to stick around afterwards because at 12:30 Central Time, we'll be starting our final session of the day looking at the future of connected health. Before I get started with my Analyst Insight presentation, just a quick note on how to engage with our SwapGuard platform. On the right of your screen, you should see a panel with 3 tabs, one for chat, one for questions, and one for polling. Again, to ask our speakers questions, you can type a question into the question tab. We'll also have a few polls that you can answer throughout the day in the polling tab. And if you want to download our presentations for the day, there is a download link at the bottom of the session webpage under Documents. So yes, health tracking. 2020 has seen some profound changes in the way people think about their health and wellness. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, fewer Americans are eating out. Many have begun building out home gyms and are making use of digital fitness classes in order to keep themselves fit. About 2/3 of heads of US broadband households report plans to make a permanent lifestyle change that will improve their health. The market for connected health and fitness has changed as a result of COVID-19. Consumers report high intentions to purchase tested connected health products and are interested in digital solutions to improve their well-being. Many report using app-based approaches to managing their health and fitness. Many are also taking part in digital fitness classes in order to keep themselves fit in this time of social distancing. Consumer experiences with telehealth are also opening up a new market for remote patient monitoring solutions. And we see more opportunities for using health data to guide care delivery and improve care outcomes. So, health data. There's been a lot of demand for health data from many different parties. Demand from care providers, demand from insurers, demand from public health professionals, and demand from consumers themselves. And players in this space are really interested in all sorts of types of data: vital sign information, physical activity metrics, calorie consumption and diet tracking, the digitization of diagnostic data such as x-rays, information on COVID-19 and its spread. And that's really to say nothing of the other types of data out there: data collected in electronic medical records, data on operational metrics that can be used to further improve care, tackle new areas of opportunity, and increase operational efficiencies. Among care providers, there is also a growing recognition of the limitations of traditional telehealth solutions, remote visits enabled by video calls, phone calls, or text messages. Providers oftentimes are missing out on the data that they need in order to properly evaluate their patients. Well, in the last few months, some care providers have been getting around this by asking their patients to take their own vital sign readings with an unconnected product and share the results via a text message or web portal. This is not ideal. It asks a lot of the patient, and it may not always be accurate. There's been demand for a more long-term approach. New models for care that make use of devices to gather data either for remotely monitoring and managing consumers' chronic conditions or even for remote diagnostics. We've seen an increasing number of vendors scale up their current offerings or even build out new solutions to meet the needs of their clients. There's also been a lot of movement on the merger and acquisition side of things, such as the Teladoc and Livongo merger. Much of this has been enabled by a recent change in reimbursement by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid that hit just this past January. Care providers can now receive reimbursement for remote patient monitoring services provided by vendors. Another area where we're seeing interest, both on the part of insurers and care organizations, is also in more full stack approaches towards managing chronic conditions and lifestyles. The medical field and public health has long recognized the impact that lifestyle has on health status, health outcomes, and chronic conditions such as diabetes. Historically, the way that care providers, health systems, and others have engaged with these at-risk populations has been through the field of health education, running programs and interventions that educate patients on what they can do to improve their health, challenge them to make lifestyle changes, and coach them along the way. However, historically, it's been pretty difficult to keep patients engaged with these types of programs and on track with these sorts of lifestyle changes in the long run. It takes regular check-ins and can be expensive. The most effective programs in particular are also the most labor-intensive, and they're difficult to run at scale. It can also be difficult to track results in the long run, which means that oftentimes you aren't sure if the intervention worked and if the cost to run the program was actually worth it. However, technological changes and innovations in design have led to new app-based approaches for supporting patients' lifestyle changes. These solutions make use of gamification and nudges to motivate patients and keep them engaged. Technology has also made it easier and somewhat less expensive to provide individualized coaching and education, even by live health coaches, dietitians, and other experts. One of the big benefits with these app-based solutions is also the ability to track results using data entered into the app or data provided by connected devices and services. Health insurers and care providers sometimes are even able to track participation in one of these programs and tie it to improved clinical outcomes or even reduced cost. This ability to track data and outcomes lets stakeholders know if programs are effective and worth their while, and typically they are. Blue Shield of California has had some great results with its Wellvolution program, and we'll be hearing about that in just a bit. And who hasn't heard of Livongo and its success in helping diabetes patients? For many companies and the remote patient monitoring space in particular, this type of lifestyle change solution really represents the next evolution of their businesses. Looking specifically at the consumer side of things, connected health as a category is really approaching the mainstream. As of May 2020, 42% of heads of US broadband households report that their household owns at least one of 18 different internet connected health products. Households that own at least one of these products report owning around 3 on average. For the last few years, the connected health space operated similarly to where the smart home space used to be. Adoption of the category overall had stalled, but current device owners were adding more and more devices to the fold, either adopting more device categories or for devices that are personal and not household, such as wearables, so smartwatches, fitness trackers, sports watches. They were encouraging other household members to also adopt. However, we've seen some very strong evidence that connected health is breaking out of this holding pattern. For example, in our May survey of 5,000 heads of US broadband households, we saw a pretty high intention to purchase connected health devices and also connected medical devices in particular. As of May 2020, around 1 in 4 heads of US broadband households rated their likelihood of purchasing at least one of our tested products in the next 12 months a 6 to 7 on a 7-point scale. While earlier this year, many companies on the device side of things were negatively impacted by supply chain disruptions and store closures, demand from consumers was extremely high. In the second quarter, companies with an e-commerce presence reported really dramatic spikes in their online sales figures. And while demand has trailed off compared to where it was this spring, it's still pretty high on a year-over-year basis. In terms of consumer demand, our top three tested devices are smart thermometers, Wi-Fi weight scales, and connected blood pressure cuffs. All devices that take vital sign data, oftentimes feeding this data into apps that offer feedback and insights, and sometimes the ability to share readings with care providers. Connected medical products as a whole offer information useful in identifying and tracking valuable metrics for improving health and treating chronic conditions. New products can connect to telehealth services or provide feedback and guidance to users, expanding the capabilities of these traditional tracking products. During the initial phase of the COVID-19 pandemic, as was mentioned earlier, 41% of heads of US broadband households reported using a telehealth service in the past 12 months, a dramatic increase from the 15% reported in the second quarter of 2019, or the 8% reported in Q2 2018. Parents and also that 41% of US broadband households that use telehealth are particularly interested in purchasing connected medical devices. Looking a bit more in depth at the telehealth connection, we found that over a third of US broadband households overall consider telehealth services that would allow them to share data from medical devices to be very appealing. Many consumers experienced telehealth for the first time this year, and this wider usage, as well as the education campaigns launched by employers, insurers, and care providers, has resulted in greater familiarity with telehealth and in consumers finding telehealth solutions overall more appealing than in prior years. Consumers that currently own tested connected health devices are particularly likely to find solutions that would allow them to share data from devices to be appealing. This creates opportunities for players in the health space, opportunity to integrate with health devices, opportunity to integrate with platforms that standardize health data, and opportunity to integrate directly to consumer platforms such as Apple Health or Google Fit. Consumers are also using apps and programs that support their health and fitness needs. As of May 2020, over a third of heads of US broadband households reported using at least one type of tested app or program listed here. This is very strongly age correlated. Almost 2/3 of those age 18 to 24 report using such apps, and this drops down to around 20% of those age 65 or over. However, that 20%, around 1 in 5, is actually a very good number. Historically, the 65 plus population has been somewhat reluctant to adopt technology. However, in recent years, we've seen growing adoption of technologies such as smartphones, smart speakers, and now in 2020, telehealth and digital therapeutics. It's a good sign. In addition to using tracking apps, consumers are also participating in digital fitness classes such as classes from online sites like YouTube, video classes that consumers purchased via a DVD or online video store, classes available from gyms that are now streaming, classes through connected exercise equipment such as Peloton, and also video and audio classes from subscription services such as listed on the slide. As of May 2020, almost a third of US broadband households reported participating in some type of digital fitness class. Most cited that they did so as a direct result of COVID-19. Again, this was extremely generational. Younger consumers were much more likely to try out digital fitness than were older consumers. In this case, over half of consumers under the age of 34 reported participating in such a class, while only around 9% of those age 65 plus reported doing so. Over half of our survey respondents participating in these digital fitness solutions say that they are very likely to continue participating after the COVID-19 crisis is over. This suggests that, in the long run, a growing at-home fitness movement may become prominent. In contrast to what many have speculated, many consumers are pretty comfortable sharing their health data, or at least certain aspects of it, for a good cause. Roughly 70% of heads of US broadband households report that they are willing to share their smartphone data in order to track the spread of COVID-19 and perform contact tracing. Roughly half are willing to share without any particular qualifiers. And another 20% would be gained by offering the right types of privacy protections. Willingness to share data is actually higher among minority groups than it is among non-Hispanic whites. Looking at our consumer survey data, we see that willingness to share smartphone data is highly correlated with knowing someone who has been infected with COVID-19. And minority groups as a whole are more likely to report knowing someone who has had COVID. Much like telehealth as a whole, the segment of consumers who are interested in connected health devices and health and fitness apps and solutions have changed as a result of COVID 19. These types of solutions are beginning to appeal to a wider group of consumers, and the category as a whole has really begun to break out of the mold to a certain extent. The groups that formed the core segment of users last year remain the core. However, we're seeing much more interest among consumers outside of this core. This includes many consumers who have been traditionally slower to adopt technology, older consumers, those who are maybe less well educated, those who are lower income, and also Android owners. This is largely due to two factors: forced use of telehealth services and also rising levels of concern about one's health due to COVID 19. I talked a bit about forced telehealth adoption back on Tuesday. As per Parks Associates consumer survey data, back in May, around 41% of heads of US broadband households reported using a telehealth service in the past 12 months, up from around 15% in the year prior. While telehealth adoption has been on an upswing in the past few years, almost doubling between 2018 and 2019, this high degree of growth between 2019 and 2020 was really due to many consumers just not being able to access care otherwise, or preferring to access it remotely due to safety concerns. In terms of consumer attitudes around COVID, Parks data has found that back in May, just over half of consumers were very concerned, rating their concern a 6 to 7 on a 7-point scale, about themselves or about a family member getting COVID 19. Those consumers were around twice as likely as other consumers to report that they intended to purchase a connected medical product, or that they found the ability to share device data with telehealth companies appealing. This was around the same level of impact as telehealth service use overall. As of July, the percentage of consumers who are very concerned about a family member or themselves getting COVID has risen to 55%, or an increase of around 5 percentage points. Around two-thirds of US broadband households also report that they don't believe others are taking COVID 19 as seriously as they should be. This is another marker of concern. Instead of concern about one's own situation, though, or about one's family, they are instead concerned about society as a whole. Expect continued interest in connected medical devices, telehealth solutions, and in app-based solutions among consumers. Something else of note is that quite a few people expect to be making lasting changes to their lives as a result of COVID 19. Over half back in May, and in July, almost two-thirds expected to make at least one tested lifestyle change, such as cooking at home, taking better care of their health, or exercising from home. Of course, people always say that they're going to make changes, but sticking to them tends to be a bit harder. Nonetheless, with this high degree of concern and also this large percentage saying that they see the need for a shift, we do expect to see some of this actually stick. The need for continued social distancing into next year and likely beyond will also play a role in reinforcing these lifestyle changes and in potentially making them permanent. Thank you for joining me for this presentation, and I do believe I have some time to take questions from the audience. So make sure to get your questions in. So I see one question has popped up asking if there are platforms that make the delivery of remote care more seamless. Yes, we have seen a number of platforms arise that do make remote care delivery fairly seamless. These are platforms that really integrate something of a full stack solution, I would say. A lot of these are aimed more towards care providers and hospitals and health systems. They include check-ins and scheduling, and also oftentimes actual telehealth visits with providers. And the patient will actually be able to see notes and records of their visit. They can access their electronic health records. They can even see their their prescriptions on the app as well. So a lot of things managed via single platforms. I want to say that on the vendor side of things, we've also seen some interesting movements. Again, really integrating and tying together a lot of very interesting things. For companies in the direct to consumer space, we've seen just this big interest in tying together data from the video visit platforms and also data from devices, pulling in different lab testing partners as well, and also the ability to do prescriptions through different pharmacy partners. So lots of interesting movement on that side of things. But yes, any other questions from the audience? You've got me for around a few more minutes at least, so might as well get those questions in. Okay, it sounds like you all may be a little bit shy right now. We do have a 15-minute Q&A at the more towards the end of the day. So you can ask me your questions then or in one of our chat rooms for the networking discussion. But thank you for sticking with us on our third and final day of the Connected Health Summit, and I hope you enjoy our upcoming visionary insights. We're going to switch to transition right now. See you back in just a few minutes.
Go for it. The COVID-19 pandemic has thrust virtual solutions to the forefront of healthcare. Sweeping regulatory changes, combined with changing consumer preferences regarding in-person versus remote care, have created an enormous shift in the market and very quickly. In the past 12 months, 41% of U.S. broadband households used a telehealth service, nearly tripling year over year. Further, 83% of consumers who use telehealth services had their most recent telehealth visit paid either completely or partially by insurance. Consumers consistently report preferences for local providers for virtual consultations, and the market is now meeting that demand. In Q2 2020, 46% of recent telehealth users report using a service offered by a local physician's office versus only 13% in 2019. The industry now needs to expand providers' ability to collect and integrate data from a wide variety of connected health devices, to deepen the provider's understanding of patient needs, and expand the issues that may be addressed via virtual care.